It has been nearly a week since a suspected chemical attack killed dozens of civilians in Syria, and the U.S. is still planning its response. President Trump tweeted early Thursday that he, quote, never said when an attack on Syria would take place. He then wrote, could be very soon, or not so soon at all. That statement comes after the president promised airstrikes earlier in the week. But President Trump's defense secretary said Thursday the U.S. is still collecting the facts. David Martin has more.
Defense Secretary Mattis left the White House late this afternoon after briefing the president on options for a military strike against Syria. But shortly afterward, the White House said no final decision has been made. That was a marked change from Monday when a decision seemed imminent.
We are meeting with our military and everybody else, and we'll be making some major decisions over the next 24 to 48 hours.
U.S. intelligence estimates 42 people died in the suspected chemical attack, most of them showing symptoms consistent with chlorine gas, some looking more like a nerve agent. The president of France said flatly, "We have proof that last week chemical weapons, at least with chlorine, were used by the regime of Bashar al-Assad," although he did not say what the proof was. A spokesman for Britain's prime minister said her cabinet agreed it was highly likely the regime was responsible. But testifying before Congress this morning, Defense Secretary Mattis sounded more cautious.
I believe there was a chemical attack, and we're looking for the actual evidence.
U.S. officials say blood samples provided by medical workers confirm the presence of chemicals, but do not tell which side used them. The regime, or as the Russians have claimed, rebels seeking to overthrow the regime. An international team of experts is expected to arrive in Syria on Saturday, but even if they are allowed to visit the scene of the attack, they will not be able to determine who did it.
They can only say that they found evidence or did not, and as each day goes by, as you know, it's a non-persistent gas, so it becomes more and more difficult to confirm it.
Secretary Mattis is also concerned a strike against Syria could set off a confrontation with Russia. He has canceled plans to be out of town tonight, and President Trump is conferring by phone with the leaders of both France and Great Britain. Errol?
David, what more can you tell us about how Russia and Syria are responding from these mixed messages coming from Washington?
Well, Syria is still hunkering down for an attack, and they have been since the beginning of the week. And for them, hunkering down consists of dispersing a lot of their military equipment so that it can't be as easily destroyed. One of the things they're doing, for instance, is moving some of their aircraft from military airfields to the civilian airport at Damascus, betting that the U.S. is not going to strike a civilian target. The Russians are no doubt manning all of their air defenses in an attempt to make good on their threat to shoot down any missiles that the U.S. fires at Syria. But I would also bet, and I don't know this from intelligence sources, that they are making sure that all of their people, their advisors, are out of Syrian military facilities, because those are the targets most likely to be struck.
Well, I wanted to speak with you about that a bit more in depth, because Defense Secretary Mattis told Congress on Thursday that the U.S. is trying to prevent this situation from, in his words, escalating out of control. Explain a bit more of how Russia's presence in Syria complicates any potential U.S. strike.
Well, to begin with, Russia has publicly threatened, and the person of no less than the chief of staff of the Russian army, that it will shoot down any missile that threatens a Russian officer in Syria, and will go after the plane or ship that fired that missile. Now, most experts do not think that Russia can really do that Russia can really shoot down a large number of missiles coming in, or that it could go after the plane or ship that fired them. But you have to take Russia at its word. And so this raises the possibility that two nuclear superpowers could actually start shooting at each other. And nobody's saying that that means anything is going to happen with nuclear weapons, but once you start shooting at each other, you never can be sure that things won't get out of control.
And I wonder how American allies are looking at this. You mentioned President Trump will speak with French President Emmanuel Macron and British Prime Minister Theresa May. What do we know about any coordination between those three nations at this point?
Well, the leaders of both France and Great Britain have said publicly they want to hold Syria accountable for the use of chemical weapons. The president of France says he actually has proof that chemical weapons were used, which is further than the U.S. has been willing to go so far. And England, of course, has been traumatized by that other use of a chemical agent against the Russian former agent inside Great Britain. So they are interested in sending a message both to Russia and Syria that the use of chemicals brings severe consequences.
And we'll watch closely to see what happens next. David Martin at the Pentagon, thank you.
Sure thing.